When I was younger, I thought the moon was following me. I would press my face against the cool glass of the car window as my parents drove home from dinner, watching the luminous disk glide through the darkening sky like a patient guardian. It slipped between the telephone wires, ducked behind buildings, only to emerge again at the next intersection. Always there and always watching. Through every turn, every red light, every familiar shortcut, through our sleepy neighborhood, the moon maintained its vigil. And before you wonder, no, I wasn't afraid. If anything, the moon seemed like a benevolent stalker, the kind that leaves flowers on your doorstep without a note. The moon seemed friendly, like it had chosen me specifically to follow home. I mean, why wouldn't it? I was 7, so the world revolved around me, and I had proof. Look, even something in the sky is following me. And then, inevitably, someone explained distance to me. They told me the moon wasn't following anyone, not me, not the other children who surely believed the same thing from their own car windows. It was probably parents who explained it to me, and they spoke of incomprehensible physics, of light years, and celestial mechanics, of a sphere of rock suspended in nothing, so impossibly far away that perspective itself became kind of illusion. The moon only appeared to move with me, they said, the way mountains seem to drift alongside trains, the way stars seem smaller than streetlights. But understanding something and feeling it are very different things. Even now, sometimes I catch myself in a backseat moment, watching the moon slide through the sky. And for a second, just a second, it's following me again. The thing about learning how the world really works is that it makes you feel smaller. Not in a bad way, necessarily, just less central to the story. The moon wasn't my personal companion, it was just the moon, the rock, doing its own thing, completely unaware I existed. The universe got bigger, and I got smaller. And that's supposed to be growing up, I guess. You might be interested, why am I telling you all of this? Well, recently I played this game that brought all of this flooding back, that weird feeling when you realize the world isn't quite what you thought. And this game is Superliminal. And on paper, it sounds simple. You solve puzzles using optical illusions. 4 hours with first-person perspective, very Portal-ish vibes, but way more dreamy. Because I mean, you wake up in a dream, or perhaps even a dream of a dream, Inception style. And your task is navigating sterile corridors that obey no architect's logic, solving puzzles that would make Cornelius Escher weep with joy. But as I moved through its 4-hour fever dream, I began to understand that Superliminal isn't really about puzzles at all. And I guess this is what I want to talk with you today. It's a bit more than a game, it's a statement. It doesn't just trick your eyes, it rewires how you think about looking. It's about learning to mistrust your eyes in just the right way. The game's central mechanic is deceptively simple. Objects in the world have no fixed size. Pick up a toy block, hold it close to your eye, drop it and watch it crash to the ground as a monolithic cube large enough to climb. Take that same block, position it against a distant wall, release it and it shrinks to a pebble. The object hasn't changed, the world hasn't changed either, only your perspective has shifted, but the reality has bent itself to match your gaze. In Superliminal, you don't break the rules, you simply change where you're standing, and the rules rewrite themselves. It's a game that contextualizes what we do every day without thinking. We pick up our problems, our memories, our fears, and depending on how we hold them, they become mountains or molehills. And as you progress through the dreamscape, you understand that you're being watched. Not just by the game, but by yourself. The game's premise is that you're a patient in an experimental therapy program, yes. But more than that, you're an observer of your own observation. The game makes you acutely aware that you're not just here for solving puzzles, you're watching yourself solve them, trying to contextualize what do they mean, more than just mechanics. This game is largely about what psychologists call metacognition, thinking about thinking. But it goes deeper than that. There's this concept called looking glass self, coined by sociologist Charles Cooley. We don't just exist, we imagine how we appear to others. We just imagine their judgment of our appearance and our character, and develop ourselves through these imagined perceptions. We're constantly both the actor and the audience in the theater of our own consciousness. In Superliminal, it's brought to the surface because you're told that you're being observed. But here's the thing, aren't we always doing this to ourselves? Every decision we make, we're the ones making the choice, but we're also the ones watching ourselves choose, creating a story about who we are based on what we do. And despite its simple mechanics, the game asks an uncomfortable question. If you can change the size of objects by changing your perspective, what happens to your sense of self when you realize you're both the observer and the observed? There's the thought experiment philosophers use called the future pain problem. Imagine you have to undergo a painful medical procedure. Would you rather have it tomorrow with anesthesia that makes you forget it afterwards, or have already had it yesterday, but with no memory of it now? Most people choose to have already had it, even though the actual experience would be identical. This thought experiment reveals something profound about how we construct reality. The past isn't fixed, it's constantly being rewritten by the present. Memory isn't a recording, it's a creative act. Every time we remember something, we are actually remembering the last time we remembered it, like a game of telephone we play with ourselves. Superliminal makes this literal with its dream logic. Rooms you've passed through change when you return to them, not because the rooms have changed themselves, but because you have. You are seeing them with different eyes, or you could say from different perspective. The game understands that physical perspective and temporal perspective are the same phenomenon expressed in different dimensions. Like in real life, you can think about that argument you had 3 years ago, the one that felt that the world would end. But since it was 3 years ago, I'm quite sure you don't feel the same about it now. And it hasn't shrunk because time has some magical healing property. It doesn't bother you so much because you've unconsciously been holding it at different distances, examining it from different angles, each viewing slightly altering its shape in your memory. The argument you remember now isn't the argument that happened. It's the argument that has happened thousands of times in your mind, each iteration slightly different, like a stone worn smooth by water. But not only that, it's also proven that it's not the time that heals, but the perspective of it happening long ago. Same as when the objects seem to get smaller the further you go, the further we are in time perspective, the smaller the things that happened previously seem to be. The argument that has happened 10 years ago doesn't feel the same as the one that happened now. And not because the one that is happening now is bigger, it's because once you're far away from it, if you pick it up, it's not any bigger than a pebble. And all of this leads you to the fact that it is impossible to see something objectively. There is a level in Superliminal called white space, which in case of this game you can call as pinnacle of its idea. As you progress through that level, you encounter walls visible only from one side, tricks of the light, infinite corridors leading you to the same place no matter where you enter or leave. And then you see it, a door floating in a white space. You approach it, walk through, and you're in another fragment of architecture suspended in emptiness. A staircase that leads to nothing, a hallway that ends in white. Reality has been stripped down to its minimum viable components, just enough structure to move through, but not enough to make sense of. The genius of white space is that it makes you realize something unsettling. This is actually more honest than normal rooms. Because in reality, we never experience complete space. Your brain is constantly filling in gaps, creating continuity where none exists. You have a blind spot where your optic nerve connects to your retina. Your brain just paints over it. You can only see clearly in a tiny area of your eye called fovea. Everything else is your brain's best guess updated as your eyes move. You might have never considered it, but instead of rendering the picture you see properly, our brain has its own inbuilt DLSS. Neuroscientists call this predictive processing. Your brain isn't passively receiving reality, it's actively creating it, making thousands of predictions every second about what should be there, only updating when the predictions are wrong. You're not seeing the world, you're seeing your brain's prediction of the world, constantly compared against your sensory data. And white space in Superliminal strips away the illusion of completeness. It shows you the fact that reality as your brain actually receives it, fragments, gaps, pieces that don't quite connect, it's what it is. The white void isn't empty space, it's the honest one. It's what's really there before your brain fills in the blanks. The level forces you to confront an uncomfortable truth, that nothing you really see is objective. Your brain was doing most of the work before, and now that you know it, how can you truly trust what you see? How can you know that what you see is what is there? This is what phenomenology, the other school of philosophy, tries to discuss. Merleau-Ponty wrote that we don't have a body, we are the body. We don't have a perspective, we are the perspective. There is no view from nowhere, no God's eye view of reality. There is only the view from somewhere, from someone, And it's always a particular point of view, desperately trying to construct a complete world from incomplete information. You would of course find some other answers in religions, where the true observer is not the body but the soul, but it still does not explain completely the differences of our perspectives. Because every person you've ever met lives in a slightly different universe. I don't mean this metaphorically. The color you call blue might be what I'd call green if I could see through your eyes. The pain you'd rate as 7 might be 4 or might 10. The joke you find hilarious might be the thing that breaks someone else's heart. We're all walking around in our own private realities, using the same words to describe fundamentally different experiences. Philosophers call this the problem of other minds. We can never truly know if other people have consciousness like we do. We assume they do, we act as if they do, but we can never verify it. We're all locked in our own perspectives, calling out to each other across the unbridgeable gap, hoping the words mean the same thing on both sides. And you can feel this isolation in Superliminal. You're alone in a dream with only a disembodied voice for your company. But that voice is experiencing your journey completely differently than you. To them, you're data points, patterns, a subject to be studied. To you, this is your reality, your struggle, your triumph, same events, incompatible universes. And it's the same for us, the players, because we see the character moving through the stuff, but despite our best efforts, we cannot truly understand the character in the screen. This is the beautiful tragedy of human connection. We're all alone in our heads, but we're all alone in our heads together. We can't share perspectives, but we can share the fact that we have perspectives. We can't see through each other's eyes, but we can acknowledge that there are other eyes, other ways of seeing, and other moons following the other children home. And here's what I think Superliminal is really about. Meaning isn't discovered, it's created. That chess piece doesn't have an inherent size, it's a meaning, breach, barrier, or decoration, depends entirely on how you hold it. And this isn't a bug in reality, it's the feature. Everything, every object, every memory, every relationship, and every moment is a chess piece waiting for you to decide what size it should be. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychologist, wrote that we can't always choose what happens to us, but we can always choose what it means. He watched people in concentration camps, the same horrific circumstances create completely different realities based on perspectives they chose. Some found meaning in tiny acts of kindness, others in surviving to bear witness, others in maintaining their dignity. Same camp, but very different universes. This isn't toxic positivity or just think happy thoughts, it's something harder and more profound than this. It's the recognition that meaning is a creative act, that we're all artists painting reality with the brush of perspective. The moon following you home isn't naive, it's a choice. The devastating argument you had, becoming a funny story, isn't denial, it's authorship. The impossible room having an exit isn't optimism, it's the decision to keep looking for new angles until one works. But here's the existential joke. The you who's choosing the perspective isn't a fixed point either. You're not the same person who started watching this video. Your brain has literally, physically changed. New neural pathways formed, your synapses strengthened or weakened. The perspective that's choosing perspectives is itself a perspective, constantly shifting and never stable. And I know it sounds complicated, but it's not. It's just about the fact that you, a viewer, are different now that you heard what I said. And it is irrelevant whether you liked this video, whether you liked what I had to say, because the way how you're different might be the fact that you know that this channel is saying bullshit. It is, as Greek philosopher said, no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man. Or this is what Buddhists call no self, the idea that there is no unchanging essence of you, just a continuous flow of experiences and perspectives believing themselves into existence. You're not a thing, you're a process. Not a noun, but a verb. And Superliminal is great in the way how it shows us one of the most profound wisdoms of all. The character you're playing has no body you can see, no reflected image, no fixed identity. You exist only as perspective moving through space, changing and being changed by what you observe. You're not only playing a character who solves puzzles, because you are also the player being changed. Every time you pick up the chess piece and resize it, You're not just changing the object, you're changing yourself, your understanding of what's possible, your relationship to the puzzle, your sense of agency, and hence the observer is transformed by the act of observation. So where does this leave us? If everything is a matter of perspective, and perspective itself is constantly shifting, and the self that's doing the perceiving is also a construction, what's real, what's true, and what really matters? Well, everything, nothing, both? The answer isn't choosing one perspective, it's the ability to shift between them, to hold your pain close when it needs to be honored and far when it needs to be released, to see yourself as the center of the universe when you need to act and as a speck when you need to let go, to believe the moon follows you when you need magic and understand orbital mechanics when you need science. This isn't relativism, it's recognition that the truth isn't a thing but a relationship, between observer and observed, between past and present, between self and other, between meaning and meaningless. Superliminal reminded me of this, that consciousness isn't a spotlight illuminating reality, it's more like a dancer, improvising meaning in real time, never stepping in the same river twice because both the river and the stepper are constantly changing. The moon still follows me home sometimes, not because I don't understand astronomy, but because the astronomy is not the only way to understand. In one story, I'm a collection of molecules flying on a rock in an indifferent void. In another, I'm the universe becoming aware of itself. In yet another, I'm a child in the backseat chosen by the moon. All these stories are true, none of them are complete. The practice, the art, the game, the responsibility is choosing which story to tell and when. And most importantly, remembering that it's always your choice. We don't live in the universe as it is, we live in the universe as we perceive it. And the perceiving, it turns out, is everything.